Hello and welcome back to KXAM Plus. I am your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Space segment with KXAM space expert Eric Henriksen. Eric, how are you doing today?
Well, I'll tell the audience, because my voice is a little craggly. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm getting over some illness, and so I'm kind of like, I'm doing okay. But I'm definitely like, if you want to know why my voice is the way it is, that's why.
Yeah, everyone lately has been catching a little bug here and there.
Yeah,
But
I've heard. I texted some friends who work here, and I said, hey, I'm not going to be there today. I'm not feeling great. This is like last week. And they said, oh, yeah, a bunch of people have come down with something. They were like texting me these long list of people. So I got what everybody else is catching. That's what I get for being social and liking people. How dare I? How dare I talk to people and shake hands and do the whole thing? So what can you do?
Well, one of the things or the main thing that we're talking about today has to do with something you were planning to talk about last week, but your sickness kind of got in the way. Darn that sickness.
Darn the sickness. It works out well for us. We can talk about it here, though.
Yeah, and we're talking about this big, giant telescope that Texas schools all took apart in creating.
I like how you called it a big giant telescope, but it actually is called the Giant Magellan Telescope. It's called a giant telescope. You know what's funny? I'm going to talk about these silly names we have for telescopes. So this one's the Giant Magellan Telescope. It's going to be located in Chile. It's under construction right now, and as of last week, the National Science Foundation gave the final design phase approval for the group putting this together. And why they needed that was with that final approval, they can actually kind of get final budgetary needs met by the government. So it's half funded, private funded, and half funded by the government. It's going to cost $2 billion to build this thing. It's a huge telescope, but it is one of several in this area in Chile where they build these giant telescopes. That's called like the Giant Telescope. There's also the Very Large Telescope, and I think the Extra Large or Extremely Large Telescope. Extremely Large and Very Large. And I was writing that down earlier and went,
who names them this?
We're just lazy at this point. We're just calling things big. The big telescope, the really big telescope, the extra really, really big telescope.
The tiny telescope.
But this one at least has a Magellan, who's an explorer, in the title. So this is the Giant Magellan Telescope. And I wonder if there's a little Magellan Telescope. I'll be honest, I did not Google that. So.
I'm sure it's out there. And that name, the Magellan Telescope, you said it was an explorer. So what is this telescope actually being built for? What's the purpose?
This telescope, it will be the largest Gregorian telescope, fun word, which is a specific type of telescope that relies on taking light, and we'll explain this a little better in the video we're going to show you. It takes light and reflects it back into a different mirror, and that mirror then reflects the light back to the observer. So it's a specific type of telescope, and it has these giant mirrors, these huge, huge mirrors. And with these mirrors...
How many mirrors?
There's, 7. I think it's 7, yeah. 7 giant mirrors. And again, we'll see it in the video, too. We'll talk about more context there. But they're huge. They're huge mirrors. They're giant. And we need these giant mirrors to pull in a lot of light and to attract a lot of light. And they take all that light and they focus it to that tiny little mirror. But it'll be used to observe exoplanets, which are planets on other solar systems, which we have... we believe that every solar system has an exoplanet. So we'll be able to observe those from this location in Chile. And then that data will be used here at the University of Texas in Austin, at Texas A&M University, who are two of the partners who helped build this telescope. Those the universities will then use that data for research, which is really cool. So they're doing exoplanets. And then I also was reading a little bit about dark matter. They're looking into dark matter, which is the matter between matter. It's something that's not quite matter, but we don't know what it is. It's when you look out into space, there's these empty gaps and things, and that's one of the gaps is dark matter. And so we're still trying to study that more and learn what it is. It has gravitational pull, which is weird for something that doesn't really have mass. So it's something we don't really know anything really about, but we know that something's there. So this will be used to study that. It looks at visible light, which is light that you and I see, as opposed to like the James Webb Space Telescope, which is up in outer space, which looks at infrared light, and that has to be in space to avoid the infrared light that our planet gives off and that our sun gives off. It has to escape our atmosphere, where visible light we can see with our naked eye, which is why we can look at a telescope and see things like Jupiter and Mars.
Stars.
Right.
Yeah.
So this will be able to look at those, but because it's so big and in such a cool location, these mountains in Chile that are above the clouds, also it's like 300 days a year, there's no weather. It's perfectly clear. So, excuse me, great views, be able to observe deep space from Earth. It's one of several telescopes in that area. and it's the newest, and it's coming in the
And the
2030s.
biggest.
It's the biggest of the Gregorian, so I have to be careful. This is the biggest Gregorian telescope, but there are two other telescopes. I think the extremely large telescope,
Beats it.
I think it beats it. I think it beats it on size. So, but there's a bunch of them. They're huge in this area. They're giant, giant,
Yeah.
giant, literally.
And I think it's amazing that our students here in Texas are taking part in creating this. It's
Right.
almost completed. It says here in your article that I'm reading that it will be completed by 2030.
Yeah.
And the telescope will have 7 of the world's largest mirrors capable of collecting 368 square meters of light. Each mirror will be 27 and a half feet in diameter. That's huge.
Right. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is, so I'm 6'6", so that is nearly 5 of me.
5 of you. I
So
can barely
you've
fit you in
stood
your
next to
camera
me.
shot.
Yeah, I can barely fit in this room. This chair I'm on now, I'm all the way at the ground. And my legs are split almost. Yeah, it's like terribly. I'm big, so it's almost 5 of me. So that's pretty big.
Pretty big.
That's a pretty. It's a yeah. It's
pretty
a
big project to be
3
working on.
stories,
Yeah,
roughly 3 stories.
that's
It's
awesome.
pretty big per mirror, and there are 7 of them. The first one started construction in 2005. That's
What?
how. Yeah.
Wow.
And they have to be shaped in a perfect way too. These are not easy to build mirrors, and then they have to move them all the way from where they're being built, which is like in the United States, to Chile. Which I
How do they transport that?
I wish I had asked about that. So I didn't ask about that. I just kind of was like, where do you build the things? Because I knew the stuff was built
Do
here.
they take it in pieces?
Yeah, they take it all.
Okay.
I think they're probably going to build it. I feel like I've talked to a few people about these big projects. So usually they build it on location, like here, and they take it apart and they transport it. So,
Yeah.
so I did speak to Taft Armendroff, who is the director of the McDonald Observatory, which are our partner with this. They have the Eberly Telescope. The Eberly Telescope is huge. So we can check out that interview now. I talked with him. It's about 7 minutes longer or so, where we kind of chit-chatted about all the different cool parts about this telescope. So.
Yeah, let's listen to it. And I do want to mention before we listen to that, these episodes that we do, your entire interviews don't get aired on the TV or on our website. So
Right.
if you stick around and watch the interviews here, you'll catch a lot of interesting stuff.
I do trim out the ums, so you don't have to hear me say, let me ask this question. So yeah, I get those out.
Let's listen to it.
Giant Magellan Telescope, where it's under construction now. Am I correct in that? And then it's not like assembly isn't underway, right?
Exactly. Some of the parts of the telescope take an incredibly long time to make. Like we have to cast these huge mirrors, which are, approximately 27 and a half feet in diameter and need to be polished to an incredible accuracy. So we got started on the hard to build parts.
What is the telescope going to be used for? Why do we need it? It's not going to be here in Texas, right?
It won't be here in Texas, but our students and faculty and researchers at the University of Texas at Austin and also at Texas A&M University will use it. And with the miracle of computers and the internet, they'll be able to operate it from here in Texas. It'll be used for all sorts of astronomy, but let me give you a few examples. It'll image and take spectra of planets around nearby stars. So we know a lot about the planets in our own solar system, and any elementary school student can name all the planets and which are big and which are small. But we don't know that much about planets around other stars. We do know now that they're very common. Almost every star has at least 1 or 2 planets. And when I started out in astronomy, we didn't know that. So that's been a discovery that's occurred over our lifetime. And the Giant Magellan Telescope will really take that a lot further.
The word giant, I think, is key here. How big is this compared to like the telescopes at McDonald and like some of the other telescopes around the country?
So there's about a half dozen telescopes that are roughly 10 meters in diameter. So that's 400 inches. And we have one in Texas. We're very proud to have it at McDonald Observatory. It's called the Hobby Eberly Telescope. The others are in Hawaii, the Canary Islands, which Spain owns, and in South Africa. Uh, but the light from these stars and galaxies that are very far away are just so faint. You can think of it as the photons from these stars, the light rays, are kind of like rain that's falling down on Earth. And we just need a bigger bucket to collect it. So the Giant Magellan Telescope will use seven 8.4-meter mirrors mounted together. So 8.4 meters is about 27 and a half feet. So it'll be a huge jump, more than a 5 times jump in light gathering power over the most effective telescopes we have today.
And y'all have been working on this for years, decades. Is that fair to say?
We have been, and but this recent decision by the National Science Foundation, which is part of the federal government, to move us in the final design phase, is a very decisive moment in our quest. And what it means is they're um, allowing us to come up with the final details of the design and a final cost estimate, and it's an essential step to getting the federal funding for the telescope. It's a public-private partnership. It'll be about half privately funded and half funded by the federal government, we hope.
With this potential funding and the pieces already in the construction process, when do you expect the Giant Magellan to be complete?
The 2030s. So we still have a little ways to wait. It'll depend somewhat on how rapidly the funds flow, but we're really excited to use it in the 2030s to tackle a lot of unknown problems in astronomy, like dark matter, dark energy, beyond the looking at exoplanets that we already talked about.
With its location in Chile, does that create construction challenges, it being so far away, rather remote? Does that create new challenges for y'all to build this thing?
The US has built a lot of telescopes in Chile because it's such a high and dry place in the Andes Mountains uh, and the Atacama Desert. But we'll build it in the US and then disassemble it, ship it to Chile, and reassemble it. So the mirrors are being made in Tucson, Arizona. The steel structure of the telescope that holds everything together and allows it to point at the stars is being built in Rockford, Illinois. And right here in Austin, Texas, we're building one of the scientific instruments, a spectrograph called GMT NIRS.
Finally, I want to ask, and this is a very technical question, or in my mind it is, how do the mirrors work? Like, what is the actual process? Why do you need a giant mirror to absorb this light?
You need to bring the light to a focus. Um, and for example, with our eyes, we're using refraction to gather the light. And many of the like binoculars also use refraction. They bend the light beams together so they come to a focus at our eyeball. As you get larger and larger, it's really hard to build really huge lenses. The mirrors are curved and they reflect the light to converge at a certain focal point, and that's where we put the instruments that detect the light.
Do you have individual controls of the mirrors to help refocus them, or is that automated?
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge amount of control over them, both to bring them in and out of focus. We can also change the shape of them slowly. They have a lot of actuators and sensors on them. So it's an amazingly complex system that involves a lot of computing power to make sure the telescope produces incredibly sharp images.
Wow, that was a very interesting interview. I like that he mentioned about the younger kids who know everything about the planets that we have. They see them through our telescopes. They know how big they are, but this new generation is eventually going to know about other planets that are farther away, and that's so interesting.
Yeah, he said that when he was a kid, they didn't know there were planets in their solar systems.
That's crazy.
And now they do. And now we have confirmation. Now we've seen them all, I wouldn't say all the time, but pretty regularly. Like I used to, when I first started this job, I would write stories every time we found one. And now it's like once a week. It seems. It's probably not that much, but it's pretty regular. They'll see one. Like I remember when James Webb launched, you could see them moving across through space. You could see it's usually what it is you're looking at like a star and you see like a dark spot move across it. And that's how you see it's a planet.
It's a planet.
It's like the shadow. You see in the absence of light, in the shadow of it, that's how you can tell there's a planet there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I have a little cousin who is obsessed with space, and he knows everything about stars, galaxies, planets, and knowing that he's going to get to grow up with something like this is crazy because we're going to have so many scientists and astronauts wanting to learn more and help out anywhere that they can.
I think what's cool is probably in the next like 10, 15 years. So when I grew up, in my old age, when I grew up in the 90s to early 2000s, is like we were still using the space shuttle in the International Space Station. I remember that launching. And so that was kind of our big deal. Like we missed out on the moon landing, you know, but we got this. And so now that I'm in my late 30s, and we're entering the next decade, and we're gonna be going to the moon more often, and
maybe Mars.
Maybe Mars. Soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Probably in the next 20-ish years, we'll be on Mars. And so, seeing the shift back towards this deep space exploration is really cool to see. Because when I grew up, like I said, it was just like orbiting the Earth. That's all anyone was doing. And of course, I was obsessed, as you may guess. But that was kind of like the dream. So these kids are not going to grow up with people going, well, they're going to the moon. And that's going to hopefully change their perception.
And they're going to know that people are on the moon, not like us, where we're speculating if they went or not.
There's no speculation. don't share that. No, it's ridiculous. Of course, we went to the moon. My grandfather worked for NASA. We went to the moon. We were there for sure.
Now we will have like live streams from the moon.
I know that'll be the difference. The video back then was, I mean, they'd streamed it back, but it was not
the best quality.
It was like not even 480p. You know, it was like 10p. It was a very low quality stuff. The new stuff, will be really crazy. Yeah. You're gonna have like 4K video on the moon.
We already have images and videos of our planet from out there. So all this new technology is gonna be great to consume.
The crazy thing to me was when Firefly Aerospace landed on the moon. Was that this year? That was this year.
Yeah, it was
earlier this year. Yeah, I mean, I was there when they did it. It was cool. But when we saw the first set of videos and photos come back, and it was like 4 a.m. or something. And you're looking at this stuff going, well, there's
beautiful.
There's humans on the moon again.
Yep, they are.
Isn't that wild? And they landed successfully. There's been other landings where they have not been successful. This was the first landing. They got to do its experiments and then wrap it up. So pretty crazy.
Now they're growing produce up there?
Oh, they're figuring out how. We talked about that last week. Yeah, they're figuring. Was that last week or week before? They're figuring out how to do that. So we're on the path to growing plants on the moon, farming on the moon next. So we're working our way there. We're evolving, and heck, maybe when I'm in my 60s, I'll get to make a trip. I don't know if I want to go vacation up there. I don't know if it'd be a vacation.
Or do what Katy Perry did. Just go and come back.
Yeah, I'd love to be the Katy Perry of moon travel. Maybe the Gayle King. Everybody forgets Gayle King went too. But anyway, let's talk about the telescopes. We're just having fun now.
I want to jump back into your writing here. I'm reading your article, and it says parts of the telescope are already under construction.
Right.
We know some of them are being built here in Texas.
Yeah.
But that construction is also happening across 36 different states. Do you know what those states are?
It's a lot. It's a lot of the major states. Yeah. I kind of looked at just more what Texas was doing, and the big one was University of Texas at Austin here.
Happening here in Austin.
Yeah, it's building the GMT NIRS. NIRS is how we pronounced it. It's the Giant Magellan Telescope, near infrared spectrograph. Near infrared spectrograph, which allows us to see like infrared light. So it's gonna help study infrared, near infrared, and then I wrote near in the story, but I was up to middle infrared, which means nothing to people, but people outside of science. But near to middle, it's like the lower end of infrared. So I'll be able to observe some of that. You can't really see. Like I said, infrared's kind of challenging on Earth because we have so much interference. Chile is kind of better because it's up high in the mountains and kind of above some of the interference, but there's still interference, so there's some restrictions. But yeah, they're building that here in Austin, which is pretty cool. And Texas A&M, which has a lot of space stuff, they have so many cool space things that they have going on. I talk to them pretty frequently about space research they're doing, and they're also working on some stuff there. So it's one device built right here in Austin, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
On top of that, they have the mirrors. Like I said, our first one was built in 2005.
I think we have the video of that. I want to.
Oh yeah, there's like one of the photos here. It'll pop up here. I can see it. So these are all like concept art. One of these isn't concept art though. These are all. This is what it's going to look like in the mountains, nice and isolated.
So that is what we can expect it to look like in space.
It'll be here on Earth.
Oh, here on Earth.
Yeah, this is all on Earth. It's all in Chile.
And it's he said that he can control the mirrors.
Right. He can like move them around and shape them and stuff. And just super cool with what they're able to absorb. There is a shot. I think it's the next photo. Or no, next one.
That's what the mirrors look like.
That's what it looks like. These are all drawings, of course, because like nothing's built yet. It's not until 2030. And nothing's assembled. Things are being built already.
It's just in pieces right now.
Right. It's all in pieces. And then there's a couple others that are in that area, same area that I was looking at. One of them was called Class, I think.
So that mountain range is supposed to be Chile.
Yeah, that's Chile. Yeah, that drawing of a mountain range is supposed to be Chile. Yeah, so that's what they're going to look like. That's the mirrors, and they're big though. Like we said, it's
a huge structure.
3 stories per mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So it's across.
That's amazing.
On the diagonal, that's 9 stories. I'm gonna cough here. Hold on. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I'm still recovering. I'm doing okay. Pushing through.
And you told me right before we start you weren't sure if you're going to be able to talk as much, but you are going off. You're talking.
I'm going.
So
I'm
much.
okay. Like I said, I'm on the upward trend of being sick. It's the worst part. It's when you're like, you're not quite sick anymore, but you're not quite better.
Yeah.
I'm in that
in
phase.
between.
I'm in the in between.
So we know that this is going to launch, or it's going to be completed in 2030.
Right.
Obviously, they're building it in pieces in different countries or different areas of the world, and they're all going to be put together in Chile.
Right. So the National Science Foundation got their final design approval for the construction of the building, and now with that approval, they can then get the final budget to the federal government. So half of it comes from the federal, half of it's privately funded.
Yeah.
It's a $2 billion project, pretty expensive, not
Very
cheap.
expensive.
But it's going to open us up. They've been working on it since 2005, decades before. I mean, before that too. That's when the first mirror was being built. I asked Taft. I said, "How long have y'all been working on this? Decades?" And he was like, "Yeah." So they've been on this for decades. So it's a decades-long project. Costing $2 billion. Not bad over decades, right? If you do the math, divide that up, it's a few $1 million a year. Not terrible.
Too crazy.
Not terrible, right? And so now they have this final design phase. They can put the final design in for the construction of the building, get the final budget, and then they can actually start building things on location in Chile.
What are these little rocks? Did you see that in the video?
Little rocks.
I wonder if I can replay it.
I don't know.
It was like on the floor, there was a bunch of little rocks, and there was a scientist on top of it.
Oh, that was the mirror.
That was the mirror?
That was one of the mirrors while they were building it.
Wow.
I don't know how they built it. I wish I Googled that. Sorry, that's what I would have done.
So I'm guessing under the actual mirror are those little rocks.
I'm thinking maybe they may have melted those down to like warp them. That's my guess. Yeah, actually, that's what I was hoping. I forgot. That's the photo I was hoping to show you. But yeah, that was where they actually built the mirror. And that was from their third mirror. I want to say it was 2015 that Associated Press had published that. I reached out to them to see if they could send me any more stuff so I can show it off. It's pretty cool. I'm hoping I get some more photos, more video to show y'all.
Well, this is just one of those stories, those space stories that are evolving, and we will always get an update. And for sure, until 2030, we'll hear the finalization of the project.
And then 2030 is going to hit, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh my goodness, it's out!
It's out.
I wish I'd known about this." We've been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
James Webb is that way. I remember I was talking about it in like 2015, 2016 on TV, and then it launched 2 years ago now. Yeah. And that was such a big deal. That was huge. And then we saw the first photos, and everyone was like, "Oh,
wow,
that's why we took those." So it's pretty. Once these things come to fruition, it's pretty cool to see them pay off. So.
Well, we're excited to follow this project along its journey and maybe hear more from the Texas students who are working on this and what it's like to be such a big part of a project. We do have your article that I've been referencing here on our website already. It's published on kxan.com. You can find it on the homepage, and there's just lots of information, links, photos. What can you tell us about this article?
I have a lot in there. I'm gonna add more to it as the day goes on. So I got some cool photos, some of the cool renderings in there I wanted to show off, and a little more explanation on how the mirrors work. Not a whole lot of explanation. Again, I am not a physicist, but a little bit more on the Gregorian telescope,
sizes.
how it works. Yeah, some cool numbers and facts and figures and things that people like. So,
So visit our website, kxan.com. You can find this on the homepage right now and read more about the project and the giant telescope that we talked about today. Eric, thanks for joining me, and I'm excited to see what topic we talk about next Tuesday.
I got some cool stuff planned.
We'll see you then.